Let's now get down to the main business of tonight. The 2019 general election may have come and gone, but there are a series of issues which need to be reassessed, and opinions of some of the big players on the stage at a time are very important. Tonight, we have the presidential candidate of the YPP in that election, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, a former deputy governor of the CBN, joins us on the program. Thank you so much, Professor Moghalu.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure seeing you right after the elections.
Thank you. Thank you.
You look a bit refreshed. You've had some time out, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I had some rest, and I'm good and ready to go.
Okay, great. Let's get your view, since you are a master of mathematics of the economy. Let's take a look at what this means altogether for you.
Yes.
It takes us to the issue of cost of governance.
Yes.
For what has been released today, the major issue has been accountability and whether or not open governance at a time. That was a major issue. There's always a one-liner of the item, National Assembly, one line, and the figure is there.
But the devil is in the details.
Absolutely. But what we have now, we know who gets what. But again, in all of the documents, you do not have much of the details. But the one that we have today, your take on it?
Yes. Well, I think it points to the fact, it points to two things. One, the huge cost of governance that goes with the presidential system. And that in itself is not so much the issue. But we have to look at what's the output in terms of what the citizens are getting for the cost of governing them. You see what I'm saying? What's the quality of life? What's the standard of living in this country today? So if you look at the increasing poverty in the country, and you look at the increasing sums that are being spent on those who are governing, then it becomes a question of what's the value for the money. So that's the number one question that is raised. But I think we must also commend the Senate for this step of becoming more and more accountable. There's been a lot of pressure on them to release for the public what they spend, how they spend their budget. And that has been cloaked in secrecy for a long time, which is totally antithetical to the principles of an open democracy.
Especially when the issue also of how much they earn.
Exactly.
And the issues, the debate around perhaps you have some of the highest earning
legislators in the world making laws for the poorest people on earth. What's the value for money? Yeah, very ironic. I come back to the question of what's the value for our money. Then the third thing I want to raise is this question of the role of the citizens in enforcing accountability in governance. This country, Nigerians, have been too timid. And that's one of the reasons why politicians have taken them on a ride for so long. But thanks to the pressure of civil society, the pressure of some citizens, this is what has brought this about. And we need more of that pressure for open and accountable governance. Our citizens are asleep at the wheel broadly. Look at what's happening in Sudan. Look at what's happening all over the world. Citizens are becoming more and more demanding of accountability from government. And in this country, we need it like oxygen.
Well, Nigerians very active in terms of demanding good governance in 2019.
Were they?
To the polls.
Were they?
You were on the field, and I needed to ask you.
I don't think the voting patterns say that they were. And what I mean when I say the need to demand good governance, you will rarely, although it's beginning to happen now, we saw the protest by Kadri Ahmed and so on. You know, Nigerians don't understand that you have to go into the streets in a peaceful manner, but to protest, carry placards, put the government under pressure for things that are going wrong and demand what is your due. If you don't have 24-hour electricity, who's protesting about it? And we've had it for decades. We just assume it's a way of life. So in 2019, in the elections, for example, we saw in some states, we saw at the state level, some shifts in terms of some parties controlling the state, and the citizens felt maybe we want a different party. So we have a bit of that. But at the national level, we have not seen a strong move away from the dominant political parties and the dominant political culture. The elections were the worst in a long time.
Really?
In my view.
Were you disappointed? Because I had spoken to you before that election. and you were very sure that you were going to win this election. Were you disappointed in the outcome of that election?
Naturally, I was. But I want you to know that the outcome of the election reflects where the Nigerian people are at this time. It's not a reflection of me. It's not a reflection of my candidacy. It's a choice that the Nigerians themselves have made that, well, this is where we want to be at this point. They had the information. We provided them the opportunity, but you saw that most of the voting predominantly went to the APC and the PDP. The biggest disappointment was with the youth. The youth vote was absent. They make a lot of noise. They rant and rave on social media, but you will not see them on the voting day. And when they vote, they don't vote in line with their rhetoric. So you find, therefore, that Nigeria's citizens are still, politically, in terms of political development, we need a lot of work.
Nigerians,
voter education.
Are still politically lethargic?
I think so.
I mean, if you look at what happened in the 2019 election, the conduct, and would you say there's an improvement? Would you say from 2015 conduct, would you say it was a free and fair process?
I wouldn't say so. I think the elections, first of all, you have to divide two things. One is the organizational efficiency and effectiveness of the elections. That was absolutely weak. Saw it. First of all, it was postponed at the very last minute. And then in many parts of the country, there was just a lot of chaos at the polling booths, especially in rural areas. Where I voted, that was my experience. I know that in some places in Abuja, it was all very nice and peaceful. But the overall conduct of the elections, the question of transportation of ballot papers, there is need for a fundamental reform of the electoral system in this country. Because the real question we have to ask ourselves as we go towards 23 is Nigeria really a democracy? If a democracy is about voting and counting, someone said it's not the votes alone, it's the counting.
Would you then say there is any element of rigging in this in the 2019 election?
Oh, there were a lot of credible allegations of rigging. I myself experienced what I would call diversion of votes, suppression of votes, and so on. So there were.
You were rigged out, or you were not voted for?
No. I'm not saying I was rigged out. I mean, the truth is that based on the fact that Nigerians have made their choice to remain with the status quo, I didn't win the election. So I'm not claiming that I won the election and was rigged out. I want to be very clear. But I know for a fact that our votes were stolen, our votes were diverted, our votes were suppressed. And for these reasons, the numbers attributed to the YPP, for example, as the final count, was a joke.
You thought your permutation would have been, you thought you were going to win in some states. And which are these states?
It's difficult to predict. We campaigned strongly across the whole country, but I think that Nigerians at this point succumbed to the political industrial complex. The machine of the APC and the PDP was still dominant in this election. But something has happened that is very interesting. Everywhere I go in Nigeria today, many people are congratulating me as if I won the election. And I'm like, but we didn't win. They said, no, you won. You won something. It may not be, you can't quantify it in number of votes, but you've opened up a space. Nigerians have seen an alternative, a way that we should be moving towards. So that in itself is a very important victory in terms of our development as a democracy. The next thing that needs to happen is a reform of the electoral system, the voting process, to cut down on rigging and manipulations, and so that that opportunity is then available to citizens to make choices that will actually count.
Do you think Nigerians make the right choices in Muhammadu Buhari?
It's their choice.
Do you think he's the right one?
It's their choice. If I felt that the performance of the government before then was very good, then I wouldn't have run. I ran because I was dissatisfied with the performance of the government, and that's my right as a citizen.
Now that he's your president, he's my president, he's the president of Nigeria.
The president of Nigeria.
And the government of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Now that Nigerians have voted for that government,
of course,
do you have any iota of trust that they can actually deliver to a large extent into the promises they've made?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for President Buhari and his government to see, look, you have one last chance You have a chance for a legacy. Look at your past 4 years. Listen to the complaints of Nigerians and make a determination that in this next 4 years, you will be very significantly different in three important areas. And paradoxically, they were the areas on which you won in 2015. National unity. The unity of this country is completely frayed. There's no cohesion. So it's important, and the president has said he will run an inclusive government. Let's watch and see. Let's wait and see what that means. Do you see what I'm saying? Then the second thing, of course, which is huge, is the economy. Huge, huge. The economy is not where it should be at all.
All right.
So, and then security.
All right. Let's take a pause because
Sure.
there's still a lot of issues that we need to take on.
Absolutely.
I'll take you on the economy, the approach of this government on economy,
Sure.
on security, and the state of the nation generally.
Yes.
We
Sure.
see how Professor Kingsley Moghalu, the YPP presidential candidate in the 2019 presidential election. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Don't go anywhere.